Hello, hello, whenever you may be watching this, my name is Harvey Bell. Welcome back to the channel. We're getting very close to the start of the new season now, and I'm very lucky to be joined on my channel throughout this week by George Woods, aka CF Woody, who is a Liverpool supporting content creator. In today's video, we're going to jump ahead and we're going to look at the tactical battle between Kieran McKenna and Arne. Kieran McKenna's first season in the Premier League, Arne Slot's first season in the Premier League. That just makes this a very fascinating fixture, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it really does. Again, not only is it Schlott's obviously first season in the Premier League, obviously inaugural season with Liverpool, right? After, 9 years of Jurgen Klopp, who again, well, I mean, you might have a different opinion on it, but he's obviously going down as one of the greatest managers of Liverpool Football Club. So he's got a bit of a tough act to follow, hasn't he, really? But yeah, it's looking like the club have sort of backed him in their own way. Again, not in terms of transfers, but that's a whole nother thing. But it's looking as if there is an actual system in place. The players look happy. A lot of them around the camp have sort of been saying like, oh, this genuinely is looking like it's benefiting my style of play. The likes of your Curtis Joneses, your Harvey Elliott's, not necessarily better than what it was, but different. And that is very exciting.
It is very exciting indeed. And I wonder, as a Liverpool fan, obviously Klopp moving on, that's a difficult thing. He's been there for so many years, had so much success. How difficult is it to then adapt to a new manager and sort of buy into them early on?
Well, I think it's tough in a way. I think, and again, I believe Jurgen Klopp sort of, or Arne Slot rather, has spoken about this before. The transition between the two, you don't get very often where you have a manager that's so successful and so brilliant and they leave on really positive terms. More often than not, you get obviously a sacking or some sort of controversy or something. We knew that Klopp was going to go for ages. He literally chanted the bloke's name as he left. Like, that's quite, if that's not a good inkling as to how sort of set up and structured it is, I honestly don't know what would be. I think as a fan, you've just got to try and buy into it, right? Like, it's going to be different. It's looked different, but early signs have looked promising. Pre-season's looked very good. I know pre-season is pre-season, but they have looked. They've looked exciting. If that's the best way of looking at it, it'll probably be dramatic. There'll probably be some difficult moments. You can't expect them to go win every game, but you got to also remember that they're coming off the back of a season where they weren't far away from that top two, with a fresh squad, entire new midfield, different structure. So it's definitely exciting times looking ahead, particularly if we can potentially bring in some new assets.
Absolutely. And I almost wonder, I mean, obviously, Kieran McKenna has been with Ipswich for sort of 2.5 years now, coming up for 3 years. If he was to then move on, having had the success that he has had, the next manager that came in for me would almost have a little bit of a free pass because you're not going to necessarily follow that success right on. Is it very much a case of Slot is the next manager after Klopp, or is it a case of he's now got scope to develop, but maybe the fans aren't going to be as harsh on him because he has got a tough act to follow?
I think that's an excellent point. I do generally think, judging from the vibe, that the fans are going to give him his chance. I think they understand that what you got in Klopp was sort of one in a million almost, in the way that he turned that club around when he started there, right? You're never going to replicate that magic. You might not even necessarily replicate those moments. But I think to sit there and think that Schlott is just like the rebound manager it's a little bit disrespectful. You look at what he's done at the likes of Feyenoord. He's obviously he's won the league, won the domestic cup. There's moments there, and again, he's also done it on essentially a shoestring budget. I think his most expensive signing ever was around 8 million euros. And I get it, it's the Dutch league; they're not exactly bringing in world-class players every single time. But Liverpool don't tend to do that either. They tend to develop what they have. So I think there's method to the appointment of Schlott. I fear that if it does honestly start going a little bit shaky, potentially initially, obviously you guys straight up into the Premier League for the first time in how long's it been?
22 years.
22 years, right? So you've been waiting a while. Lunchtime kickoff, obviously at your end, it's gonna be a tough one. I do think, genuinely, but I think as long as they can get behind Schlott, get behind the system. They've seen preseason, they've seen early signs of this sort of double pivot they're wanting to play. Again, if they can bring in a new midfielder who emulates that well, I know the big rumor at the minute is we're looking to sign Zuba-Mendy, who's obviously come off the back of an incredible Euro campaign and everything. So I think if you can give him the assets to play the system that he wants to play, I think people will buy into it. And generally speaking, as incredible as Klopp is, and I don't think I'll ever see a manager as good as him again, there can be fatigue with that in how he plays. And a different system, refresh faces, refreshes the whole team. I do think people have bought into. I certainly have bought into it early doors. So hopefully that's been the case for all fans.
Exciting times at Anfield, it seems then. But I'm really fascinated to know, as an Ipswich Town fan, you've obviously got yourselves a new manager. But what do you make of our manager? Many people think Kieran McKenna is the best young coach in the world. I very much believe that. I think he's fantastic. Obviously, we're his first job in management. Obviously, he was assistant manager at Manchester United as well. But 2 successive promotions with us in his first 2 full seasons is very impressive. Is that something that you, as a Liverpool fan, are sort of sceptical of going into the new season, knowing that he's had this success and his sides never really know how to lose?
That's the thing. I don't know if it's necessarily skepticism, but again, you've got a manager that's been there for a good amount of time now, right? He obviously has brought in the assets that he wants. He's got the players that he wants. He's very, very assertive of his system. And again, back-to-match promotions is obviously very impressive. You've seen clubs do it before. Did Bournemouth do it a few years ago, I believe? If nothing else, and I hate to bring this up on your channel, but I know that the Canaries did do it back in the day.
Get him off.
I remember Paul Lambert doing it. But yeah, it's obviously not exactly an easy feat to do, is it? And with a club the stature of Ipswich, it's even more impressive, 100%. So I don't know if he's the best young manager currently in football. I think there's definitely a good shout for him to be amongst those. I mean, I think the early or the easy option, you look at the likes of like an Eddie Howe or something. But when you look at the difference in assets, what they've got, obviously the difference in financial backing, McKenna's done incredibly well. So yeah. I mean, it doesn't honestly make me nervous, but does it make you potentially nervous as an Ipswich fan? Do you think you'll be able to keep hold of him if things go a little bit different?
Well, I think we hopefully should be able to. I mean, he signed a new contract this summer. So there was rumours, of course, of him going to Chelsea, back to Manchester United. You know, it was scary. There was a few weeks, but we got that sorted nice and early on, which was good. Obviously, that then helps going into pre-season, get our players ready, knowing that they've got the manager that they've achieved so much success with to play for, to carry on, to try and impress, to earn their place in the squad. So that was very important to get them nailed down early. But it's almost like being victims of your own success in many ways, because you think of, you could be really, really good. I mean, we was awful for so many years. I've been a season ticket holder now. This is my 15th season as a season ticket holder. And up until then, it's been pretty dire, and nobody would want to come and take our managers. No, there's no reason for them to move on. So now that we've got players and managers that are doing well, it is almost sort of, it's great, but at the same time, you're almost waiting for the day where somebody comes along and tries to pinch them. But ultimately, he has stayed. We've got him for this season. That's very exciting. And I do expect this Saturday against Liverpool to be a very exciting encounter, on the basis that the football we play under Kieran McKenna is so fluid, it's very attacking, it's fearless. There hasn't been a team come to Portman Road that we haven't tried to attack. But at the same time, Arne Slot's first game for Liverpool, he's a manager that has grown up playing football in the Netherlands. He's managed in the Netherlands. We know that the Dutch way of playing is a system that brings fluidity. It's attacking football. It's players making runs off the ball. They're not going to hold back. They're going to attack. So this could just be an incredible game of football, purely on the basis of the manager's ways of playing and setting up their teams, couldn't it?
I think that's a great sort of point to go with there. Obviously, the energy that the two sides are going to bring to this match, I think, is going to be probably the tie of the weekend. Honestly, again, obviously, you guys, first time in 22 years, it's going to be. Portman Road is going to be rocking, right? I mean, I've been there before. It is a nice ground. It's got the capacity to be rocking. And again, I know you can look into sort of technicalities and things, but Liverpool hate a 12:30 kickoff. That we know that coming across the country. But yeah, the energy and the spirit behind both sides should be really top tier. I don't know if I'm apprehensive. I think when you look at newly promoted sides, first game of the season, you're always going to give it everything anyway, right? So if there is a worse time to play an Ipswich, who again not trying to go at them, but they're not necessarily favourites to either stay up or like challenge for titles and cups or whatever else. Liverpool should be the favourites in this game. I don't necessarily think it will pan out that way, if I'm being honest.
No, and that is the thing. Is football has a funny way of going against what people expect, and the stage is set for a potential. I'm reluctant to call it an upset. I think it's weird because as an Ipswich fan, having not seen us play your Liverpools, your Manchester Cities, your Manchester Uniteds, it almost feels like we've won a cup draw. But I sometimes have to wake myself up and remember we're here for a reason. We've got promoted 2 seasons in a row. We deserve to be where we are. But one thing that is for sure is Saturday. It's going to be an exciting occasion. Kieran McKenna versus Arne Slot, two fantastic managers making their Premier League debut. How amazing!
What more could you want on a Saturday afternoon?